Ladies and gentlemen, today's motion addresses the unsustainable burden on free healthcare system from poor lifestyle choices like smoking, excessive drinking, and unhealthy eating. We propose a solution to maintain the sustainability and fairness of these systems, directly addressing the root problem. So let me offer you the definition of the key terms. So like free healthcare refers to the healthcare systems where medical services are funded through taxation or government expenditure, like providing healthcare services to all citizens without direct payment at the point of use. So poor lifestyle choices refers to like the behaviors or habits that increase the risk of preventable health conditions such as smoking, excessive alcohol consumption, unhealthy diet leading to obesity, lack of exercise, and failure to adhere to medical advice. So this policy. Wait a second. Can I restart?
Sure. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Prefer pronounce she/her again, and my time starts in 3, 2, 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's motion addresses the unsustainable burden on free healthcare systems from poor lifestyle choices like smoking, excessive drinking, and unhealthy eating. We propose a solution to maintain the sustainability and fairness of these systems, directly addressing the root problem. So, let me offer the definition of key terms. Free healthcare refers to healthcare systems where medical systems are funded through taxation or government expenditure, providing healthcare services to all citizens without direct payment at the point of use. So, poor lifestyle choices refers to the behaviors or habits that increase the risk of preventable health conditions such as smoking, excessive alcohol consumption, unhealthy diet leading to obesity, lack of exercise, and failure to adhere to medical devices. So this policy promotes fairness, personal accountability, sustainability in healthcare systems. So burden to the opponents. Our opponents then has to prove that there is a viable alternative to the principle of equitable access to healthcare that address healthcare costs without abuse. So today's proposition itself will offer you 3 arguments about why individuals who make poor lifestyle choices should pay for their part of healthcare costs. So they are first, economic sustainability; second, personal responsibility and fairness; and 3, incentivizing healthcare choices. So I would like to set up the first 2 arguments, and my partner will do some extensions and move on to our 3rd argument. So our first argument is economic sustainability. So free healthcare systems are under immersed financial strain due to high costs associated with treating lifestyle related diseases. So lifestyle related diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and respiratory issues are often the result of poor lifestyle choices like smoking, alcohol consumption, and stuff like that. So these conditions require extensive and costly medical treatments that put a significant burden on the free healthcare systems. By making individuals who engage in these behaviors contribute to the cost of their treatment, we can elevate some of this financial pressure. So this approach actually ensures that those who place the greatest strain on the system also bear the cost. So for example, I think the UK's National Health Service or something like that spends a lot of money annually on treating these smoking related illness. So if smokers were required to pay a portion of their treatment courses, it would actually reduce the overall financial burden. So by implementing this policy, we ensure the sustainability of the healthcare system for everyone. It creates a fair distribution of costs where those who engage in risky behaviors contribute more towards their healthcare expenses, thus preserving the system's financial viability. So increased availability of resources. So financial contribution from individuals can be redirected to enhance healthcare infrastructure, fund new medical technologies, and improve patient care services as well. So this can actually lead to a better healthcare outcome, shorter waiting times, and higher quality of care as well. Our second argument is based on personal responsibility and fairness. So personal responsibility and fairness are essential components of a sustainable healthcare system. It is only fair that individuals who make poor lifestyle choices could bear some financial responsibility for the consequences of their actions. So this policy is not about penalizing people, but about ensuring those who place an extra burden on the healthcare system contributes to its upkeep. So by doing so, we encourage individuals to make healthier choices, reducing the incidence of lifestyle-related diseases and the associated healthcare costs. So countries such as Singapore have implemented policies where individuals with certain lifestyle-related conditions, such as obesity, are incentivized to participate in well-being programs. So these programs include, for example, financial incentives for maintaining a healthy lifestyle, which has led to a notable decrease in healthcare costs related to these conditions. So this approach not only promotes fairness, but also fosters a culture of personal responsibility. So it ensures that individuals are more mindful of the health costs, which benefits both them and the healthcare system as a whole. So ultimately, this leads to a healthier population and a more sustainable healthcare system as well, as the resources are better allocated and the overall strain on the system that is reduced. So making individuals contribute to the cost of treating lifestyle related diseases reduce the financial burden on free healthcare systems as well. So this relief ensures that the resources are available for other critical areas such as emergency care and chronic disease not linked to lifestyle choices as well. So implementing this policy ensures that financial responsibility is more equitably distributed. So those who make healthier choices are not unfairly subsiding the costs incurred by those who engage in risky behaviors. So this fairness promotes a social cohesion and public trust in the healthcare system, fostering accountability and a more just healthcare environment. So by all the points above, we are so proud to affirm. Thank you.
One of the principles of universal healthcare is that no matter your identity or choices, everybody deserves the right to healthcare. There are already enough ways to inform people and increase meaningful consent, such as public safety posters or videos, as well as the social perception that cigarettes and alcohol are already unhealthy. But secondly, there are ways to increase public safety as well, including sin tax and making places where smoking is disallowed, so this does not cause further third-party harm. However, all of this is to say that choice is already respected in status quo, and it should be further be respected. The difference here between sin tax and this policy that affirmative is proposing is that cigarettes or sin tax taxes the cigarettes and alcohol of the products that these people are using. The difference is that under affirmative, you disallow the right to healthcare unless you have a certain threshold of money. Then 3 points of my speech, firstly on some clarifications, then on how we protect fundamental principles of universal healthcare and how we increase transparency between patients and doctors. In order for side affirmative impacts to be important in the debate, though that healthcare system is likely to take excessive and large amounts of money. The state has an incentive to take money from people that are considered to have made bad healthcare choices in order to fund their healthcare system, demonize them because healthcare is universal in status quo. Note that countries that have universal healthcare already concede to the fact that your access to healthcare should not be dictated by your personal life and choices. But secondly, that in countries that have already established universal healthcare, the country is likely already stable and has the tax money or economic sustainability to carry out the universal healthcare, which responds to their first argument. But secondly, responding to the first point on their second argument, when someone has terminal cancer, they are placing a very high burden on hospitals. But instead of paying more, they pay less. Their second argument does not stand in the characterization where a universal healthcare system exists, because people understand that these things are usually not controlled. Moving on to my first argument then on how we protect the principle of universal healthcare. It is wrong for the government to define what a healthy lifestyle is, because note that in status quo, people are forced into unhealthy lifestyles because of their identity and circumstances. Some people make unhealthy lifestyle choices as a choice, but some have to because of the situation they were put into. For example, people that were poor already are more likely to eat junk food because it is cheap, or people whose friends and families smoke cigarettes are likely to do so in order to fit in and relieve stress. What happens in a world where healthcare is no longer a right is that these vulnerable people are no longer able to afford healthcare, even though they were coerced into this unhealthy lifestyle or were forced to take up unhealthy habits to cope with the failures of the state. Pures in chat, please. But the impact of this is that these people are even more actively stigmatized, and that this is a vicious cycle. People cannot change between healthy lifestyle choices because there's a direct opportunity cost for paying for healthcare and investing into more healthy life choices. But even when this is a choice for people, why people should have the choice to choose their lifestyles. The state should take on a paternal role, which means that this is to say that we should only actively discourage something only because there's a clear threat to the extent that you might obviously die for this. There's a difference between discouraging people from buying harmful products and disallowing healthcare because you make a choice. In a world where you disallow healthcare as an entirety, you don't only remove the right of choice and the principles of universal healthcare, but you also target vulnerable, creating a risk of substantial health harm to them. Now, moving on to my second argument about how this breaks the trust between the doctor and the patient. Two mechanisms in this argument. Firstly, individuals will be unlikely to be honest about their lifestyle choices in government's world. This mechanism relies on two assertions. Firstly, that individuals would realistically be the ones telling their doctors about these lifestyle choices to begin with, and secondly, they're likely to be untruthful. In status quo, it is logistically impossible to track the lifestyle choices of every individual, meaning what they are eating, drinking, and their hobbies. This means that government's policy essentially relies on a trust-based system. This means that parents or patients would be the ones explaining their symptoms and lifestyles to doctors. This point will be extended by our deputy, but since patients are unlikely to want to be paying significantly more to receive healthcare, they are intuitively more likely to lie or not be completely truthful to their choices. This means that doctors won't have the full picture about the patient's condition, and therefore this will not only break trust between the doctor and the patient. This is something that is crucial to get patients to cooperate to begin with, but this will also directly affect their health. In a worst case, this will lead to either extremely high medical bills or will lead to a worse recovery or none at all. Then secondly, doctors are likely to nitpick to try to earn more money. In an affirmative bench, your world is likely to see doctors actively nitpicking at a different lifestyle choices and actions in order to see more profit and to earn more money. This is likely because there's a direct monetary incentive for doctors to receive extra income. What this means is that not only do you punish patients for their honesty by regarding their health when they could have chosen not to, but you also break the trust between the doctor and the patient, because doctors and patients are able to be dishonest without going against the policies in affirmative's world. Very proud to oppose.
As the second speaker of proposition, I will first rebut our opponent's case and then come back to offer the rest of our arguments here. The opposition first speaker mainly talked about how we should actually ensure the universal access of healthcare, right? However, some responses here. Universal access does not actually equate to unlimited resources. While healthcare is indeed a human right, the proposition asserts that this does not imply unlimited access to all healthcare services without any personal responsibility, right? Universal access means that healthcare should be available to everyone regardless of their ability to pay at the point of the service. However, it does not absolve individuals from contributing to healthcare costs when their health conditions are directly influenced by their lifestyle choices here. We would say that it is fair and reasonable to expect individuals to bear some responsibility for healthcare costs that result from preventable health conditions, right? By requiring financial contributions from those who engage in poor lifestyle choices, healthcare resources can be allocated more equitably to prioritize urgent and unavoidable health needs. This ensures that healthcare systems can sustainably meet the needs of all citizens over the long term here. So, Judge, I want to remind you about our case here. We tell you that holding individuals accountable is fair and economic sustainable in our first speech here. And please note that, Judge, the first speaker of opposition actually never engaged with our points that our first speaker has provided it that. And please note that. Okay, so now moving on to present our third argument about incentivizing healthier choices. Firstly, we would say that requiring individuals to pay for the costs associated with poor lifestyle choices creates a financial incentive for people to adopt healthier behaviors. When people face financial consequences for actions such as smoking, excessive drinking, or maintaining an unhealthy diet, they're more likely to consider the long-term impacts of these choices. This policy encourages individuals to make healthy decisions to avoid additional healthcare costs. As a result, the incidence of lifestyle-related diseases like obesity, diabetes, and heart disease can significantly decrease. This not only benefits individuals themselves, but also reduces the overall burden on the healthcare system. Before I move on to give out some examples of the NPIs. Okay, so if not, I would continue here. So, Judge, now please consider the scenario here. Consider the success of tobacco taxes in reducing smoking rates here. When countries implemented higher tax on cigarettes, tobacco, and etc., there is a definite decline in the smoking rates, since there would be a financial burden of purchasing tobacco products, and that has definitely increased, right? Similarly, by implementing costs for poor lifestyle choices, individuals will be more motivated to adopt healthier habits. The impact of incentivizing healthier choices is multifaceted. Firstly, it leads to a healthier population with lower rates of lifestyle-related diseases, right? Reducing the overall demand on healthcare services. This decrease in demand translates to cost savings for the healthcare system, enabling better allocation of resources to other critical health areas. Secondly, individuals experience improved quality of life and increased longevity due to healthy living. And last but not the least, the policy promotes a culture of personal accountability and proactive health management, fostering societal well-being and reducing the economic burden of preventable diseases on both individuals and states here. Judge, we would like to remind you of this motion here. This motion is that we would put those people who have poor lifestyle choices pay for part of the cost of their healthcare. It doesn't actually mean that we should let them pay whole of their healthcare, which is quite burdening in financials, right? And that is why our opponent's whole case doesn't stand, since that the basic home case on that the motion is that people have to pay for the whole cost of their healthcare, and they're absolutely off the topic. Thus, very proud to propose. Thank you.
The difference between sin tax and Gov's world is that the purpose of sin tax is to disincentivize everyone in general from buying things like cigarettes. But under Gov's world, what they're doing is actively denying the right of these people to have the access to healthcare when they need it the most, unless they meet a certain threshold of money. It is wrong for healthcare for them to deny access to healthcare to people who are in the most urgent need. We think that this is dangerous and goes against the principles of the state. Before anything, a few notes on direct responses and clarifications. First of all, side government's logic that this burdens healthcare is incorrect. This is to say that the state does have enough resources because, as the motion states, in countries where healthcare is already free and state funded, they already have the stability to do so. So this is assuming that the state already has resources to give everyone free healthcare, because that's literally what the motion says. But if resources are the concern, that can easily be addressed under our world by further taxing people, like richer people with the money. But secondly, on the point that comes from opposition government that there's a need to bear responsibility. This is wrong because in a world where universal healthcare is already respected in the status quo, this means that this principle should apply to this debate as well. Again, as Rachel tells you, there's a need to decrease the responsibility of these people because they could never have predicted in their habits that this would have led to a health condition so harmful in their livelihood. But also note that our principle is that everyone in a state that already gives everyone free access to healthcare should principally have the access when they need it the most. But thirdly, finally, on side affirmatives, assertion that healthier habits would be respected. This is not true because not everyone chooses their habits. Some are forced and coerced into their poor lifestyle choices because they do not have the money to, for example, afford like good food. But secondly, note that this is not true because instead of creating healthier habits, people are only more likely to hide their lifestyle choices. This is my extension. What Prop proposes is a world where we slap a blindfold on doctors, making it impossible for them to communicate with their patients and solve the problem from the root cause. So now I'll move on to my extension on how our side better allows people to change from unhealthy lifestyle choices. And the premise here is that people in their world are incentivized to actively disclose and hide information from doctors. Two main layers of analysis here. First of all, note that people are more likely to disclose information, to hide and disclose their information from doctors. We tell you in our framing that it is incredibly difficult for doctors and healthcare to know when someone has an unhealthy lifestyle or not. Therefore, what it's likely to look like under their world is that they rely on people telling the doctors otherwise, doctors themselves if they have unhealthy lifestyles, because otherwise it's difficult for doctors to track everyone's life. Therefore, what's instead likely to occur is that people obviously do not want to be taxed extra for healthcare. Therefore, they're unlikely to share any extra information that is possibly helpful to doctors. This is to say that if I'm someone who smokes daily and I have lung cancer, under Gov's world, I would be afraid of being taxed more. Therefore, I'm unlikely to tell the doctor that I smoked, but simply show my symptoms. This will result in the following two main harms. One, this will affect the diagnosis process and access to the most accurate treatment because the doctor doesn't know every information about this patient's life. They're less likely to give accurate treatment programs and also they're less likely to diagnose them properly. But secondly, there's a lack of trust between the patients and the doctors. I'll take a POI. Wait, actually, it's out of time. Never mind. But secondly, note that with extra taxes, it's too expensive to afford any extra treatments. And this is even in the case that we assume the best of their world, that patients will somehow want to share information about their lifestyles. So when you have to pay more for something like cancer treatments, which are probably something that are unexpected, it's incredibly financially burdening on these people. This is to say that people do not expect to get cancer most of the time. Therefore, people are unlikely to have the money to properly take care of this. This is harmful because this means that people are unlikely to actually have enough resources to afford any extra beneficial treatment. Therefore, they're unlikely to have enough money and support to actually change from their healthy lifestyles. Their world simply looks like one where people will not be able to change because their treatment is too expensive. The difference with our world then is that healthcare remains accessible because people have a greater access to treatment in order to become healthier. This is because it's obviously cheaper. So our world looks like one where people are able to share their unhealthy lifestyles with doctors and find practical ways to address this since there's no fear of backlash. This argument is important because we tell you why DPM's most push point on encouraging healthy lifestyles is not only actively a dangerous narrative, but also their benefits still occur, but better on our side of the house. So proud to oppose.
As the third speaker of the proposition, I'll do three things. Firstly, offer some rebuttals as well clarifications, then rebuild our case, and lastly, weigh the most important clashes. So the first clarification in this debate is mainly about the motion. So what we mentioned is that there's a proportional cost sharing. So the proposition supports a system where individuals pay only a part of the additional healthcare costs directly attributable to their poor lifestyle choices. But no, Judge, our opponents are actually misunderstanding the motion because they're saying that the poor people could not afford because sometimes their poor lifestyle choices isn't chosen by themselves. But we're saying that they only need to provide a part of the additional healthcare cost, not totally. So note that the contribution is a supplement to the free healthcare system, meaning it covers only a portion of the extra costs incurred due to specific behaviors such as smoking, excessive drinking, or unhealthy eating habits leading to obesity. There's merely one of the examples. Secondly, it's encouraging personal responsibility. The opposition argued that making people pay for their healthcare based on lifestyle choices is punitive and goes against the principles of universal healthcare. Well, universal healthcare does not mean that unlimited and unconditional healthcare, regardless of personal responsibility. Encouraging personal responsibility is crucial for a sustainable healthcare system. So we clarified that twice in our first speech and also in our second speech. So we mentioned that we should clearly outweigh them as we could provide a big impact to the people, and we're thinking from the larger scope as our opponents did not respond to that directly. The opposition lists three main arguments, but teammate has successfully rebutted that. Firstly, they said the impact on social equity. So we does not seek to dismantle universal healthcare, but to enhance its sustainability and fairness. The principle of universal healthcare can coexist with measures that encourage personal responsibility by ensuring that those who make healthier choices are not disproportionately burdened by the cost incurred by other poor choices. The system remains equitable. Secondly, that we prove that the policy is discriminatory because it's based on actions, not individuals. Thirdly, that it is unfair, impacts low-income individuals because the policy can be implemented with fairness measures. We already rebutted our opponent's contentions. Next, let me extend our incentivizing healthier choices argument. By implementing financial contributions, individuals are motivated to make healthier lifestyle choices, which has been proven to reduce starving not accepted, the incidence of lifestyle-related diseases, and consequently, the strain on healthcare systems. Next, moving on to the most important clash of today's debate, but before that, any POIs, I'd like to answer.
Why do you guys specifically have to tax those who with unhealthier lifestyles when they're the ones who need support the most?
No, because we're saying that sometimes you cannot ensure that 100% of them, of the poor lifestyle choices is not chosen by them. So we need to tell them the responsibility of themselves, and only we're saying a portional. Sometimes it's a small portion and the small part of the healthcare system. Also, there's resource allocation we mentioned in the first speech in our second contention of the impact. So that we're mentioning a more equitable and also a more fair system. Okay, the rest of the time I would like to weigh the most important clash in today's debate. That is the balance between individual responsibility and systemic fairness. Well, on our side, there are mainly some impacts. Firstly, it's the reduction in healthcare expenses. Secondly, it's the economic benefits. Only it's just a small impact. Secondly, it's incentivizing healthier choices, which are thinking of the individual itself. We also talked about long-term health benefits because we're encouraging healthier lifestyles that improve health, life expectancy, and quality of life. Thirdly, about the stakeholders in our side, we said about the government and taxpayers and also the healthcare providers. And last, it's the at-risk individual. So no judge, we're thinking not only from the government and the individual, but also from the economy and also the resource allocations. If we weigh this debate, then we can prove that we will outweigh on economic efficiency because we demonstrate how shifting financial responsibility for poor lifestyle choices can lead to a more efficient allocation of resources. Secondly, we mentioned about public health improvement, which we want our opponents to provide a direct response to that. Lastly, we also responded to our opponents of fairness and accountability. Thus, for all the reasons above, still proud to propose. Thank you.
Gov's biggest concern in today's debate was that they wanted to solve a lack of resources from healthcare, but there are 3 points as to why this isn't true to begin with. Firstly, this is just untrue because the motion is already assuming a stable country with free healthcare that is able to, free universal healthcare that is able to sustain itself without collapsing. But secondly, why is the solution to tax specifically those with unhealthy lifestyles? This is where the POI from Ein is especially important because they never provide any logic here. There are individuals who are significantly richer or according to their own logic about how we should tax those or we should penalize those who have the most impact towards hospitals. That means that we should be penalizing those with severe cancer, for example. This we shouldn't be taxing those with unhealthy lifestyles to begin with. Proud to oppose moving straight onto some direct rebuttals and clashes then. Firstly, the first clash then why it is principally wrong to restrict medical care for these individuals to begin with. So let's do some weighing here. What did government say in today's debate? Firstly, they talked about how it is the responsibility for us to penalize these individuals since they bring the most burden to the healthcare system. But as we stated before, Judge, we don't tax these individuals simply because they have a burden to the healthcare system. We penalize them. Rather, the point of universal healthcare and the principle here, as we stated from Rachel, is that we provide an amount of universal healthcare for everybody, regardless of their choices, regardless of and we don't discriminate based on whatever they've done as a whole. We would argue that it's the basis of universal healthcare in and of itself for this to occur, and therefore it contradicts that point. Which what did we say then? Firstly, coming from Rachel, there is an active limit of how much you should penalize individuals for their choices. But this obviously isn't the case with things like smoking, alcohol, and fast foods, because those things are legalized for a reason, and that's because the state should respect that some people choose to opt into certain types of lifestyles because that's what they believe what makes them happy. Obviously, we understand the risks to their health, and that's why things like sin tax exist. But then at the same same time, we also must acknowledge that it is to these, and it is not to the extent that they will die. So therefore, we should respect these individuals' choices from the get-go. This is a debate-winning premise and principle, as you need to maintain the choice of citizens. That is a basic human right, that principles of democracy. Therefore, it is the wrong for the state to actively punish and discriminate against people who choose to opt for a certain lifestyle. The state cannot dictate what they believe is a good or bad lifestyle, which explains my point on how government side has no clear policy or metric in this debate, because it's also the percentage, correct? Which means that to what extent has eating McDonald's caused or affected my health? This moves me on straight on to my second clash on which side has a better medical system. Government side says that that we can invest this money into universal healthcare, but as I've stated many times before, this won't happen because this is true. Because firstly, it contradicts one of your second or it's a tension in your second argument. Because if it is true that individuals will likely not make unhealthy choices on your side of the house, then the money won't be that big of an impact for it actually to actively change the universal healthcare system or in any way benefit the economy. But secondly, we would posit then that even if this was true, it's still ridiculous to be charging individuals the amount of money that you are, because as Rachel has stated, for your impacts to be mechanized, this has to be a substantial amount of money that will be able to be researched into these cancer research thingies, medication, whatever. This means that your policy either A, has no impact, or B, if it does, it substantially harms these individuals to an extent that is ridiculous and sacrifices their own life. What we say is that people lie on your side. And since government has never characterized or clarified how we will verify these lifestyle choices to begin with, then the realistic characterization is the one we provide from Rachel, that it will be trust-based. This is harmful because now individuals will lie about their medical condition. They'll lie about many things. This is another winning argument that can alone win the debate if we take this clash home, simply because of the metric that if the medical system cannot function and the universal healthcare system cannot function, then we take the debate home, because this debate is about the security of the medical system and its ability to function and support these individuals. Therefore, we take the debate home not based on weighing, but also based on their own benefit, as well as the fact that as well as the principle of universal healthcare. Thank you.
I think that affirmative fails to recognize where this debate is set. Not only do we tell you that these countries are already able to run universal healthcare with the resource they have, but secondly, that there is an understanding, social and political narrative that complete choice and healthcare is a right, is valued. Affirmative seems consistent, though, on the point that all healthcare systems are incomplete. The reason that this falls in today's debate is because side affirmative seems to give no mechanism on why people have the biggest and most unhealthy lifestyle choices should be taxed the most. The rhetoric that comes from first prop is that we should tax those that have the most impact on the healthcare system. But as we tell you again and again, this metric does not work, because those with the most impact on the healthcare system are those with extreme terminal illnesses. The fact is that no matter how informed people are of their personal health risks, there is a risk and there is a chance, as well as some gray area, that is impossible to know whether or not you will have to deal with the sickness or how damaging it will be. This is why we tell you that we should tax the rich. This already comes out as soon as we can. The people that are vulnerable already have enough to deal with. But secondly, the biggest issue that was never truly responded to by affirmative was the relationship between doctors and patients. The first two things I tell you is that patients are likely to hide their habits and lifestyle choices in order to keep their money, and that doctors are likely to take advantage of and punish the people that are being honest in order to earn more money. But then Ein tells you why it is the case that in our world, people are able to live a healthier life. This is because not only when there is a mutual trust and no fear that patients will be able to share necessary information for a proper diagnosis and treatment, but also under their world, it is too expensive. So a lot of people will not have the money to recover. Note that this is the most important issue, because this impacts all people, no matter if they have made choices that are incredibly unhealthy or if they have lived a healthy lifestyle. So gut face fails the moment that they never prove why it is justified to deny certain people of their right to healthcare when they need it the most. From all of our speeches, we tell you that these people with unhealthy lifestyles are often people who need the most support. This is especially important when they are literally going to doctors now because they have cancer, but then the world is denying that access. We tell you why this is simply unjust. So we win when we tell you why we save the most vulnerable people in this debate. Very proud to oppose.
Did not limited time, Josh. Our second proposition has won today's debate by the following winning issues here. But before I move on for some clarifications, just as our first speaker and third speaker had stated, we tell you that this part that individuals have to pay for their healthcare is based on the affordability of the individuals. So what our opponents stated many times, not only in their reply but also in their speeches, has that the individuals that choose poor lifestyle are usually those that cannot afford their healthcare is completely illogical here. Next, moving on to some issues here. Firstly, our opponents fail to respond to our argument about economic sustainability. We tell you that making individuals pay for their poor lifestyle choices alleviates the financial strain on the healthcare system, right? They dropped it, so judge, we should automatically win that point. Secondly, our opponents don't outweigh us in the most important clash in today's debate, which is fairness versus a deterrence. We tell you that fairness is crucial in maintaining the integrity of the healthcare system. Even if they try to actually argue against it, our side matters more because fairness ensures the justice for all involved here. Certainly, we would argue that incentivizing healthcare choices through financial responsibility is effective and just. Our opponents fail to show why this approach would not lead to healthier populations and reduce healthcare costs. Judge, please also note that our opponent's case has a main flaw, which is on their point of resource allocation and fairness. The opposition might argue that, although healthcare should be free and equal for everyone, regardless of lifestyle choices, here we will actually say that this approach fails to consider the strain on healthcare resources. Poor lifestyles such as smoking, excessive drinking, and unhealthy diets significantly increase the incidence of chronic diseases, just as we had already explained, like heart disease, diabetes, and etc. Here. And judge, in the world of proposition, we can create a fair, sustainable healthcare system that encourages healthier choices and reduces overall costs. In contrast, in the world of opposition, we would see continued strain on the healthcare resources without addressing the root cause of the problem. Thus, for all these reasons stated above, we're so proud to propose. Thank you.